Tiramisu is expensive, time-consuming, and loaded with calories, but not mine. I made tiramisu for the first time last year for my birthday. It was my birthday gift to myself. And it was delicious, not too complicated, but it is time-consuming, and it was expensive. The mascarpone cheese alone cost over $10, so altogether it cost me over $30 to make. And I just thought there's got to be a way that I can lower the calories, lower the fat, make this less expensive. And I did. I came up with a way, and so I'm going to share that with you today. If you're not familiar with what tiramisu is, it's a layered dessert. It has espresso-soaked ladyfinger biscuits on the bottom. You layer in another custard on top of that, which it's called Savoiardi, and traditionally it is made up of mascarpone cheese, whipped cream, egg yolks, and a lot of sugar. So you have 2 layers of the cookies, 2 layers of custard, and then you sprinkle cocoa on top to finish it off. So I've come up with a less expensive, lower calorie, quicker version, and I'm going to share that with you today. So come along. You might be wondering, I thought we were making dessert. Why is there an espresso machine on the counter? Like I mentioned earlier, tiramisu has espresso in it. And in order to make a good tiramisu, you want good coffee. So if you don't have an espresso machine, find a friend who does. If you don't have a friend who has one, go to a cafe and get them to pull you some good shots. And at the very least, get yourself some good whole bean coffee and make a good strong pot of coffee in your regular coffee maker. But please, have a little self-respect. Don't use instant coffee. It won't taste good. So we're going to get started here, and I'm going to just start pulling shots. I think I'm going to need 4 double shots of espresso, around 150 grams of coffee at the end of this. That should be enough to soak all of our ladyfingers in at the end. Okay, I'm done making my espresso, and this is totally optional, but I like to add a little bit of Bailey's Irish cream to my espresso, so I'm going to pour that in here. It's just 1 tablespoon. And you want to make your espresso first before you get started on anything else so that it has time to cool. It's just going to be less time that's going to be needed in the fridge later if you start with colder ingredients. So this is going to sit and cool while I make the rest of the custard now. So I referred to this as a custard, I think because it doesn't have any egg in it. I don't think you can technically call it a custard, but it's just easier that way. Traditionally, it's called a sabaignon, and I'm not French. Don't come at me if I'm saying it wrong. But instead of mascarpone cheese, whipped cream, egg yolks that are cooked over the stove, I'm doing this all in a blender. So I've got, let's start here, 1 cup of cottage cheese. I promise you, if you are someone who says, I hate cottage cheese, don't write this off until you've tried it. It's gonna all get blended up. There's not gonna be any lumps in this. I don't think you would know that there's cottage cheese in here. It's a lighter way to get that creamy texture, and it's really delicious. I do like cottage cheese, but if you don't like it, I don't think you would be offended by it. So 1 cup of cottage cheese. This is half a cup of fat-free Greek yogurt. And then I've got 4 ounces, half a brick of reduced fat cream cheese. And then I'm adding a teaspoon of vanilla extract and a 1/4 cup of sugar. Now, a normal recipe of tiramisu would have twice that amount of sugar. And a lot of skinny recipes that I've seen, they use artificial sweeteners in order to cut those calories. I don't know about you, but I don't like the way artificial sweetener tastes. Even the sugar substitute things like monk fruit, it just leaves me feeling unsatisfied. The mouthfeel is all wrong. And then I just want to eat sweet stuff after I've already had dessert, so I don't find that it's helpful. In addition to that, my husband can't actually process artificial and sugar substitutes. It doesn't do well for his body. Apparently, your body doesn't actually digest them. They don't have calories because it just goes straight through you. Do with that what you will. I'm going to blend this up. Just gonna scrape down the sides to make sure there's no lumps in here. And then give it another blitz. It's ready to go. So as I was talking about before with the reduced sugar, when I'm baking, I always reduce the sugar that a recipe calls for. I'll usually cut it by a third the first time that I make a recipe. So if it called for 1 cup, I'll do 2/3. And often I can scale it back even further, sometimes to half a cup or half the amount that it calls for. But I've never had an issue with things not tasting good when I reduce the sugar. Do you ever do that? I'm curious in the comments. Let me know if you ever reduce the sugar and if you've ever had a recipe that it just wasn't a good call. But for me, I've always had success with cutting back the sugar and things still taste good. So I'm gonna get the blender out of the way, and then we're gonna start dipping our ladyfingers in the coffee and get this all layered up. We're ready to assemble, so I'm gonna take my espresso and Bailey's mixture here, and I'm gonna just pour it into a long container. You just need something that your ladyfinger cookies are going to actually fit in, that it's wide enough that you can fit the cookie into it. And the ladyfinger cookies that you wanna look for, they are Italian Savoiardi ladyfinger cookies. They're crunchy. If you find soft ladyfingers, don't buy them. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for these long, crunchy. They should be hard. So I've got coffee here. I'm just going to dunk, flip, and pull it out. Repeat that until the bottom of your pan is covered. And this is a 5-inch loaf pan. If you wanted to make double the recipe, obviously you could use 2 loaf pans, or you could use, what is it, like a 11 by 7 baking dish, I think, if you doubled it. But if you do this amount, you end up with dessert, but not too much dessert that you're eating it for days and days. So this is a good amount for us. And I'm gonna fit 6 in the bottom, and I think the remaining 8, because the pan obviously fans outward, I'm gonna have enough room for the 8 on top. You need 14 cookies altogether. So now that I've got a layer of cookies, I'm gonna put half of my custard on top. Approximately. I don't know if that's actually half. It's always a little bit of a guessing game. How long do you hold it under the espresso in order to soak it up? You want to get enough coffee in there to soften it, but not so much that it just goes soggy. And sometimes I end up not quite having enough espresso at the end for my last cookie or 2. Apparently I could have held my first layer underneath a little more because I've got a lot of coffee here still. Oh well. I'll give these a little extra time. I might not have enough room for the last cookie. That's fine. Yep. I've only got room for 13. Okay, now we're gonna top it off with the remaining custard mixture. That's it. It's really simple. I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap and throw it in the fridge. It should be in there for at least 4 hours. Overnight would be great, but you just need time for those cookies to soften up and for the flavors to blend together. Okay, I've got my tiramisu. I just pulled it out of the fridge. It's ready to go except for the cocoa powder. So I'm going to dust it with cocoa. Don't be too heavy-handed with this. It just needs to be light. And then I can dish it up and serve it. It looks just like a normal serving of tiramisu would look, except it has half of the sugar, a third of the fat, 180 calories as opposed to 425. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know if you try this and what you think of it. I'll see you next time.